whatever the situation is, psychology that is not rooted in any type of spiritual practice, spiritual clearing, energetic clearing, if it doesn't have that component to it, it is very much rooted in the mind. And it's about your logical brain, which essentially bypasses a really big component of what needs to be done to fully heal. Welcome to the Akashic Recordings. I'm Annette Dalloo, Akashic conduit, channel, and spiritual guidance coach. I want to thank you for joining me today. The Akashic Recordings is created through the cooperation of my clients who have agreed to have their sessions recorded. Of course, with their permission, I am able to share these beautiful sessions with you. If you are interested in booking a session with me, you can go to my website at infinitesoulove.com. Before we dive into this week's episode, I have a very quick announcement. So I have mentioned this to some of you out there who are on my mailing list. I will be launching Soul Discovery Workshop online in the next few months. And what I would like to do is have all of you who are interested to send me an email, and I will put you on the list to be first in line for one of these spots. So what this is going to entail is you are going to have modules that you will be able to listen to, meditations, clearing work, all kinds of things that you will have in your portal. But you will also have group calls with me so we can actually work with each other. We can practice your intuition, and the evolution of the Soul Discovery Workshop is basically allowing and teaching all of you to access your own Akashic records. So if you are interested, please send me an email, Annette@infinitesoulove.com, and I will put you on the waiting list. And when that registration is open, you will get the first spots that are open before I open it up to the public.
For today's episode, we decided to focus on a particular section taken from Zoe and Phoebe's session, the bulk of which we heard last week. In this section, Zoe tells Annette about some fears she has that are stopping her from taking action in her life, so Annette leads her through a timeline exercise.
Yeah, so the last time we talked, it was a lot about like my job and my career and like where I'm going. Mm-hmm. And I've just been getting bombarded with just the signs and synchronicities and these feelings of encouragement. And I guess I'm just still kind of battling this inner part of myself. I just got done working for 2 months straight with only 2 days off, and it's just like, it's killing me, and thinking about going back and doing it more is just so suffocating. Like, it literally feels like the worst thing that I could do for myself, but I don't really know what to do with any of the stuff that's like being presented in front of me right now.
What are some of the signs that you're getting?
I'm getting a lot of numbers.
Okay.
A lot of numbers. I'm also getting my spirit animal is coming up all the time. All the conversations, and when I'm moving into certain directions, it's like exclamation marks everywhere I'm going, but also at the same time, I just don't feel good about my life.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we'll take a look at what the timing issue is in terms of when things are going to sort of start moving or start changing. And forgive me because I may have mentioned this to you. I usually don't remember the readings because most of the time I'm in a channel. So like the information kind of falls out of my brain the second that the session is done. So was there any sort of action steps that I gave you the last time?
We were talking about, and first of all, I'm not offended by you for getting that like at all. But we were talking about the job that I have working on the boat and how I don't like it and how I really want to pursue like a career with art, and I want to maybe not move to Ecuador, but work down there for a little bit. But now I'm also thinking about Nashville as being like a secondary. And yeah, I guess like the thing that's always like stopping me from that is just like my financial stability and honestly coming back to the fear of being homeless.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, now I do recall. Have you started looking into any of the things that we talked about in terms of your time off and then going to, because I seem to recall now that we talked about you asking your boss about doing less hours. I can't remember what it was exactly, but I know we talked about that.
Right, yeah. So I told him that I needed a new contract and it needed to like have a rotational crew on it so that I was off half the year. And he said that he would get that, but this company I'm working for kind of like does the carrot on the string a lot. And I basically just said that like if it's not finalized by like July, then I'm gonna quit in the winter. And I just feel like they're more willing to just lose me.
I'm getting that they're not willing to lose you, but they're also not super motivated either. I keep on hearing them say, yeah, we'll deal with that later. Like it's not a pressing issue. Okay. So what is the draw to Asheville?
Well, my boyfriend has always talked about wanting to live there, but looking into it more, there's just like a lot of resources that I could use based on like all the physical classes they have. Aerial silks and yoga and just like a big spiritual and art community that I feel like I could connect with other people and grow in that aspect of my life and like make that more of my center.
Is he there already?
No,
Okay.
He's here with me.
Okay, so then this would be a move that you would make together.
Right.
Okay, got it. That feels like something that you could do as like a soft landing. I'm hearing it would be really, really easy for the both of you to get a job there.
Really?
I'm not sure why, but something about your skills as well as his skills, there's something about your skill set that maybe there's not a lot of there. Start doing some searching to see what is a possibility. And I'm not seeing that maybe you would need to get a full-time job. Maybe you would just work part-time and then you would be able to pursue some of these other spiritual classes and things like that. I mean, it is a possibility for you to do. And it is a choice. So if you want to leave after this season and go and move to Asheville and pursue something there, you'll certainly be supported in doing so.
Okay. It just doesn't feel like it's like a hell yes. Like when we were talking before and I said about like talking about moving to Ecuador, you were saying that they were like screaming yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't really want to make a choice that's just like lukewarm if I'm going to be doing something huge.
Yeah, well, that's why I was saying that it feels like a soft landing, because what we were talking about before is more of like, okay, you're going to be hanging out in this job until you feel comfortable enough to go to Ecuador. Whereas the soft landing option would be like, okay, so you don't have to worry so much about being in this environment that you're in now. So you'd be able to get yourself out of the environment and then go to the soft landing before you're able to go to Ecuador. You know what I'm saying? It would be like a 2-step plan as opposed to a 1-step plan.
Okay.
So that's why you're feeling like it's not a hell yes, because even if you did move to Asheville, it wouldn't be like a permanent thing. It would be definitely temporary.
Oh, interesting. I was thinking it would be the other way around, where Asheville would be like where I end up staying. But
well, it might in the long run, but I mean, you still have too much that you need to do. Like you still have too many places that you want to go and that you want to explore. And you might find yourself back there again, like in 10 years or 15 years or something like that. But for the time being, if you were to go there now, you would feel it immediately. You would feel it that you were like, oh, wait, if I feel like if I stay here, like this is it, like I'm going to stay here forever. And it's not time for me to do that yet.
Okay. So one of the other synchronicities that I had was that probably about a year ago, I just like sat down and started drawing what I believe to be my dream home. And then I was on Zillow because my boyfriend sent me a house that was in Asheville. And I started looking at other houses. And I saw a listing for the exact drawing that I had drawn.
Beautiful.
Yeah, but like it's also $1.2 million.
Well, okay, so here's the thing, is that this is the universe saying to you that what you have and what you've manifested is there. It's available. Okay. So now it's about getting all of the money alignment and have that place, right? So not to say that you're never going to have it. It's not to say that you're going to have it this year. But knowing that that is something that is what you want, now you're basically telling the universe, okay, cool. So this is what I want. This is exactly the house that I want, or that, or what I like to say is this or something better. And then from that perspective, it's time for the universe to start bringing me the money that I have coming into my life in order to get this house.
Yeah. And I feel like that's going to come when I decide to like fully commit to myself and do the thing that's just like pulling at my heartstrings. But
Absolutely.
I just have a lot of fear. I have a lot of fear in between those two things.
So where are the fears coming from? Do you know?
Failure externally, and also just failing myself, not being committed enough, and just giving up on myself. And then also money. Always comes down to money.
So money is just energy. So the amount of money that comes into you on any given day is based on the energy that you are allowing it to come through. So imagine it like a spout of water. Is your spout all the way open, or is it all the way shut? Or is it a tiny bit open, right? Connecting to the energy of money and just imagining a visual of that energy opening up to money and to receiving money. And if you can imagine like a faucet of money turning all the way on, so money just completely flows into your life on a regular basis. That is a visualization that I want you to do as much as you can. And it doesn't have to be a faucet. It can be anything. Like you could come up with some visualization of your own that's similar to that, but the same kind of idea of opening your energy up to money, to the energy of money. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the fear of failure. What I would like you to do, and for Phoebe, I would like you to do the same thing, just so you're getting something from this as well. Maybe it's not fear of failure, but maybe think of another fear that you have.
Okay.
That you want to work on. And I would like you to imagine that you have a timeline stretched out behind you. And this timeline goes from this present moment all the way back into your inception in your mother's womb. And with your intuition, I want you to go all the way back to the very, very first time you can recognize that you felt this fear. And we're not talking about remembering. We're not talking about a memory. We're talking about connecting to that intuition, and let your intuition tell you the age that you were when you first felt that fear. And let me know when you both have that age.
I have it.
I have it as well.
Okay. So I'd like you to invite that version of yourself to stand in front of you right now. Or if it's an infant or even younger than that, just imagine that you're holding that child. And I want you to ask that version of yourself, where did this fear come from? What was the origin point of this fear? And Zoe, are you able to connect with that?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what was happening?
Just my mom, I think, just blaming me for everything that went wrong, blaming me for all the hardships in her life.
Okay. And Phoebe, were you able to get the origin?
So I was maybe 9 or 10, and she is afraid to leave all of her friends behind and being afraid of not being good enough to make new friends, I guess.
And all of that big life change that goes along with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to ask for you to ask of that version of yourself what it is that she needs in this moment in order for that fear to dissipate. And Zoe, are you able to get that?
Yeah. Did you want me to say it?
Yeah.
What I got was that I needed to feel like I'm supported and to feel like I can be forgiven and just, like love and kindness.
So I want you to also ask if there's anything that she needs to be forgiven for.
No.
Yeah.
It's just an overwhelming cloak of just shame and guilt that she's just carried with her whole life.
And she hasn't needed to because none of it is hers. It's all her mom's.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to put you in a bubble of divine light protection with this 2-year-old version of yourself. And inside this bubble, we're going to clear and transmute any energy that does not belong to you. We're going to allow your mother's energy to be her energy. We're going to cut any and all energetic cords between you and your mother. We're going to imagine that any words that your mom says just instantly turn into gibberish. Like, think of it like she's like the adults that speak in the Snoopy cartoons. Anything she says, like, it doesn't sound like anything. It's just gibberish.
Okay.
And just understand and look at her as if all of that energy, all of that psychic debris, that's all hers. It has nothing to do with you. And because she had all this psychic debris, it made it incredibly difficult for her to love you the way that you needed to be loved, because she had all of these things going around in her energy field. And it's really hard for us to give something we want to give to somebody else if our energy field is all mucked up with all kinds of guilt and shame and pain. Because when we give somebody our energy, we can't just pick and choose what energy we're going to give them. Energy doesn't lie. We're just literally handing them whatever energy we're in, right? And when you're a parent, you don't really have a choice. You give your child whatever energy you're in. And that's not her fault necessarily. It's just the state of things. It's just how things were. So I'd like you to imagine that you and this 2-year-old version of yourself is safe in that beautiful bubble, safe from any of that psychic debris that was your mother's, removing all the energetic cords that do not belong to you, and allowing yourself to feel safe and empowered in your own energy. And then I would like you to pick up that 2-year-old version of yourself if you aren't holding her already. And I would like you to give her that love, that acceptance, that nurturing, that unconditional love that she is desiring. And then check in with her and ask her how she's feeling now.
She's feeling good.
Good. That's awesome. So anytime you feel that feeling of failure or the fear of failure, I want you to connect in with her. And I want you to connect in with that feeling and ask if it's really yours. Is it really true? Is any of it true? And of course, we've all had failures in our lives. We all have. But is it something that we need to hold on to as a cautionary tale, so to speak? We learn from our failures. It's a learning point, but we don't have to repeat them. And even if we do fail at something, sometimes that can just be the universe's way of course correcting. Or maybe you're growing out of something in particular that you need to change. Failure does not define you. It can simply be a transition from one energy to the next. I can use the example of my business. I was a designer for 24 years, and I had my own business for half of that time. And once I started understanding that I would be doing this work and that I'd be reading the Akashic Records, the universe started preparing me for it. And it took a lot of preparation. It took me like 5 years to prepare. And it was a lot of shadow work. It was a lot of crying. It was a lot of rough energies. Let's put it that way. And in that process, slowly but surely, my design business was tanking. And I knew, because I knew that I was moving into this new energy, I knew that it was happening for a reason. And no matter what I did, I couldn't seem to get more clients. And the clients that I did have were one company closed their doors. Another one decided to hire in-house designers, so they weren't using freelance anymore. Like all of these things started happening. Could I have looked at that as a failure? I certainly could have. But it wasn't a failure because it was simply a transition from one to the next. And it's a matter of like how graceful that transition is how much we're paying attention to the messages that we're getting from our guides and how much we are resisting that change. So I would like you to put your hand on your heart right now. And how does that feel within yourself now?
It feels a lot better, but I still feel that like half dark, stuff in there.
Yeah, it takes time. You're never going to be able to just take a fear and just be like, okay, eradicated, done. Because, we cultivate our fears for our entire lifetimes, right? We got to the origin point of that fear, which is that 2-year-old version of yourself. But you have, since that moment, reiterated that fear to yourself for all the rest of the years of your life.
Yeah, it definitely feels more manageable.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing, is that as long as you can make it a little bit more manageable every single day and start reframing, rescripting, changing the way you think about it, little step by step, it'll start to unfold differently for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Phoebe, we're going to go to yours. You are connecting to that version of yourself. I want you to tell me a little bit about what she was saying to you about what she needs.
Okay. She was saying that she needs me to love her and that we can do whatever from there and that it's okay to be new or an outcast if we love ourselves, take care of ourselves.
Do you think you can give that to her?
Yeah, I think I can.
Can you ask her how she wants to be loved?
Gently, to not be so critical and hard on her and just accept her for who she is.
And I'm hearing love my flaws.
Yeah.
And understanding that if you are able to love that shadow side of yourself, which that's what I consider to be the shadow, is like the things that we don't like about ourselves or the things that we try to hide from other people.
Yeah.
Understanding that if you are able to love that part of yourself, then other people will be able to love and accept that part of you as well. Have you shared with Zoe some of your deepest secrets, the places in which you feel like you want to hide, the places that you feel like you don't want to show people? Have you showed those places to each other?
Yeah. It's harder to go there, but I think, we've done it. It's not a place I like to go super often with anybody other than myself most of the time. But Zoe lets me share it with her, which is very nice.
So the only reason why I asked that question is because I want to just point out that in sharing that information, it did not make her love you any less, right? Okay. And she's able to accept you unconditionally no matter what you share with her. And I'm seeing that that's something that you have reciprocally for each other. Is that really no matter what you share, you're both very understanding of each other and what you're going through.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. So remember that, because I find that it is sometimes easier to share our shadow with friends. It's like friends are the easiest because you know that we're choosing to be with each other, right?
Yeah.
Family is a little harder because we're stuck with family. So if you share something with them that they don't like, then you're going to have to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And then with significant others, it's even harder because we love them and we're afraid that they're going to look at us differently or want to leave if they know certain things about us, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The one thing that is super important to know and understand is that if you are able to share that part of yourself that's imperfect to your partners, it shows and sets the example to allow them to be able to do the same. It's not to say that you have to do this all day, every day, but when you're feeling guided, if you're going through something, if you feel like you're triggered in some way, to be able to be vulnerable and share that with them and say, hey, look, like I'm working through this thing right now. This is what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And it'll help them to understand you in a much better light.
Okay.
So that's something to practice. Okay. And that's part of loving you. That's part of loving yourself and loving that version of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once again, we'd like to thank Zoe and Phoebe for their participation in this podcast. So, timeline work. Is that the same as inner child work, Annette?
The reason why I use the phrase timeline work as opposed to inner child work is simply because it removes the idea of what it is. Because inner child work is a very, very common phrase, and people know a lot about inner child in general from psychology and things like that. And I don't really want anybody to have sort of a preconceived notion of what that means. Because for me, inner child work simply means the subconscious version of yourself that is either being neglected or not getting the things it needs. Or it didn't get the things it needed in the past. So it doesn't have to be when you were a child. Oftentimes it is, but it doesn't have to be that long ago. It could be something that happened to you a year ago or a couple of years ago. So the timeline term is just allowing that this work be done literally anywhere on your timeline for this current lifetime. We are addressing the feelings and emotions as well as the energetic imprint that is still within the body and the energetic field that is from this current lifetime.
There is a fair bit of talk of it in spiritual circles and self-development circles, while timeline work is a more unusual term for it. So I just wanted to be sure that people were clear on what it actually is. So then with that in mind, whichever way we refer to it, is it the only way to do this type of work, or are there other techniques, are there other approaches, other exercises to do it?
Yeah, so there are so many ways that you can do this. This is just one technique. And the technique that I use is based on NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. It's something that is a combination of that and what my guides are guiding me to do. Sometimes when I do this work with clients, I don't really even know where it's going, but the guides sort of tell me where I need to go, what I need to do, what needs to be cleared, if it's energy work, if it's inner fears or inner shadow that needs to be integrated. So the guides pretty much tell me everything I need to know, and that's how I know which tools to use. That's how we get to the root of whatever is going on. And so that way the client can start to heal. Sometimes that does mean going through timeline work such as this. And sometimes it means that the client needs to really get in touch with their own intuition and be able to connect to that previous version of themselves. If there's somebody who is super, super blocked for whatever reason and just absolutely cannot connect in with their intuition, then this work can be done in other ways. The experience that the person had in this previous versions of themselves can be seen through my visions, through my psychic nature. The difference is that they are not able to feel or experience those emotions themselves. So it is effective, but it's going to be slightly less effective if they're not able to connect to that themselves. But ultimately, it's all about the energy. So let's say the client is dealing with something that is from the womb or when they were, let's say, 0 or 1 year old. I can connect to that, and so can they, because it's about the energy. It's not about the memory. And it's not about the age that you are necessarily. It is about the origin point of where that trauma or that shadow or that belief system was formed. And that's the other thing that we are looking for is, I want to reiterate, we are looking for the intuition. We're not looking for the actual physical memories because memories are often incorrect. And the incorrect memories or the experience of what the client had and what they interpreted it as in that previous version of themselves are often what creates some of the trauma to begin with. So there have been times when I've gone in with clients and they thought that, let's say, a parent felt a certain way about them. But when you do the timeline and realize that, in fact, their energy didn't say that at all, and that their energy had said that they really do love their child, but let's say they had their own traumas going on. So to answer your question, there are many ways you can do this work, whether it's through intuition, whether it's me checking in for the client, whether it is other modalities such as EFT tapping, somatic exercise, somatic breathing, breath work. There are so many different ways that you can start to release these things that you need to release. This is just one of those ways, and this was the way in which I was guided. So there are times when you don't even have to tap into your intuition to understand the energy that was happening in that previous version of yourself. Things like breath work sort of circumvent that. If any of you out there have done breath work, you know that the breath work itself is what is getting that energy out of your body. So there are plenty of effective ways to do this work. It is about your subconscious and the part of you that is feeling neglected, hurt, shamed, guilt, all of those sort of lower energies for visualization's sake. Sometimes it's easier for us to envision a child. It's easier for us to envision that version of ourselves from that particular age. But is it really about the child? Well, no. When you're 1 or 0 years old as a human, you're not necessarily physically conscious of what is happening and what is going on. Your soul is the one that's conscious of it, and your energy is what's conscious of it. Your consciousness is attached to whatever is going on around you energetically. I can't say that this is the only way that you can do inner child work. There are hundreds and hundreds of techniques and different ways to do it. This is just the way that I am guided to do it, just like anyone else who needs to work through something. And let's say they're not in the place where they would reach out to somebody like me. Maybe they're not on a spiritual path. Maybe they're not necessarily believing in past lives or something like that. Of course, they can certainly do inner child work because it is well documented in psychology. And so most people who aren't in the spiritual realm would probably go to a therapist or psychologist to do this work. And of course, there are amazing, beautiful tools that you can use in that realm. The difference between using those tools and doing those things is that what I found after going through as much therapy as I have in my lifetime, which has been over a decade, it doesn't address the energy of what is happening or what has happened. It addresses your feelings about it, and you can talk about it. Oh, well, I felt this way when mom did this, or I need to forgive mom for doing this because she didn't know better, or whatever. Whatever the situation is, psychology that is not rooted in any type of spiritual practice, spiritual clearing, energetic clearing, if it doesn't have that component to it, it is very much rooted in the mind. And it's about your logical brain, which essentially bypasses a really big component of what needs to be done to fully heal. I've done years and years and years of therapy that got me baby steps to where I needed to go. And until I started doing the spiritual work, I hadn't gotten very far. But the spiritual work is what made me grow leaps and bounds.
It's funny you say that because I'm rereading The Power of Now.
Oh, nice.
It was my first spiritual text that I had read many years ago. And I recently received a sign that I needed to come back to that concept of really being present in the now. And the book just happened to be within my reach. So I picked it up the other day and I started rereading it. And I just read a paragraph where Eckhart talks about the fact that, I can't remember the specific exercise he's referring to, but he's saying that a well-trained psychologist could lead you through the same exercise as long as they themselves have gone beyond the mind.
I love that. Yeah. As long as you don't stay cerebral. Right. Yeah. And the really beautiful thing about that is that it's so eloquently put. And that is why he has sold millions and millions of books. So yeah.
Yeah. He knows what he's talking about, that guy. Let's get into the real important question of this whole topic, which is, how does timeline work or inner child work? You could forgive a person for thinking that it seems like a bit of a nice little exercise, but something that is potentially missing any real power, any real ability to change something.
This requires yet a little bit of belief in how energy work functions. But if you can imagine that you have imprints of people or experiences in various places, if you have these imprints, they're echoes of the past. They are imprints of what has happened. And you can go in and clear that energy. You can clear energy from a house, from a crystal. You can clear energy from yourself. You can clear energy from pretty much anything. Because energy simply exists, and the way in which it exists depends on how it's being interacted upon, if you will. So if you're able to clear the energy of something from the past, let's say you have your grandmother's ring and you want to clear the energy of that ring, you can clear the energy of that ring by just simply setting the intention to clear the energy or to reset the energy. And so if you can imagine, it's very similar to that, except for you're doing it with your own energy. So are we going back in time, so to speak? Yes and no. It's almost as if you were carrying that energy with you. So let's say you're walking along your timeline. You start at 0, go to 1 year old, you go to 2 years old, and there's some sort of trauma that happens or some sort of thing that happens that makes you really scared or you don't like it. It's like you pick up that energy from that particular moment in time and you carry it with you. So if you can imagine, it's almost like a piece of bubble gum that's being stretched. So you're picking up that piece of bubble gum on the bottom of your shoe. That was stuck to the floor, and now you're carrying it with you from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, all the way up to your current age, right? And what we're doing is we're allowing you to let go of that piece of gum that's been stretched that entire way, stuck to your shoe, but still stuck to that previous moment. So you're letting go of that gum and it snaps back to the original timeline. Now that we've let go of it, that gum is still there though. It's still back in that original time. So what can we do? Well, we can go back and say, okay, I'm going to clean up that piece of gum. I'm going to go pick it up off the floor and I'm going to throw it out. And that allows the energy to be cleared from that particular moment in time. Now, are we changing what happened? Meaning, are we talking about the butterfly effect? We've stepped on a butterfly and now we're changing the outcome of your entire life. No. It's not like that. You're not changing the outcome of your whole life. You're simply changing the energy of what happened in the past and your reaction to it. So you can move forward in lighter, newer energy. Energy that is more conscious, energy that is more aware, because a lot of the time these things that we experience as children, we don't know what they are and we are confused by them. We don't know how to process them. But then when we look back at them from a perspective of a now, let's say 50-year-old woman that I am, I can look back and say, oh yeah, I mean, I don't know why I was upset about that. I don't really think it was that big of a deal, or now I can see the bigger perspective. where let's say my mom or my dad were going through something and I could see why they would respond the way that they did. So now you have much more perspective and you can go back and transmute and clear that, but you're not going to change the physical experiences of what happened as a child. You're simply removing that energy or transmuting it that didn't really belong there to begin with, because you're dealing with your perception of what you experienced versus the actual experience itself. And so many people, including myself, are carrying wounds that we don't need to carry. They're not serving us anymore. And actually, they probably only served us for those few moments that we had. Those fears or those worries or those anxieties back when they happened were defense mechanisms, or they were allowing us to feel safe to survive, but we're holding on to them. So this is allowing us to let go of what we've been holding on to for so long and start to move forward in the energy that is real and true and pure for ourselves.
That's a really great analogy and explanation. But I think, as you said at the beginning, the prerequisite to be able to fully understand that is to firstly have an understanding of energy having a real consequence.
Yeah, it does take a certain type of faith and belief in how this all works in order for somebody to really benefit from this.
Well, that was a slightly shorter discussion than we tend to have, but I think since we covered all the key points, let's allow it to be as it is so that it can sink in better for people.
And of course, as per usual, if there are any questions, if you come up with anything that you're wanting to know, please don't hesitate to put it in the comments and social media, send us an email, whatever you need to do, and I'd be happy to address it in another episode.
Absolutely. We would love to hear your thoughts, comments, and feedback.
And for those of you who have written to us and told us how much you are appreciating the work that we're doing, thank you so much. Thank you for sending the appreciation.
Thank you. And tell everyone you know.
Yeah, exactly. And make sure you're subscribed on YouTube if you aren't already, and make sure that you're following the podcast in whichever platform you are listening. And that way you will be absolutely certain to get every single new episode.
Follow it on all the platforms and listen to it on all the platforms.
Yeah, exactly. On that note, until next time.
Until next time.
If you're enjoying this podcast, I really would appreciate it if you would give it a like, a thumbs up, wherever you happen to be listening. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss an episode. And if you need to get a hold of me, you can certainly reach me on my website at infinitesoullove.com. You can also reach me on all social media at infinitesoullove1111. That's on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. You can find this podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Spotify, Apple, Pocket Casts, anything that you use to listen to podcasts, you can find the Akashic Recordings. Thank you so much, and don't forget to join us next week.